Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs Podcast, where innovation meets sustainability. Building a better tomorrow today. We interview change makers and visionary leaders redefining success for the planet. Here you'll find inspiring stories and solutions that matter. Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs.
Today's guest is Nicole Tysvaer, CEO and co-founder of Symbi Homes, a company at the forefront of sustainable home building. Nicole is a leader in residential construction industry, driven by the mission to build homes that are not only energy efficient, but also prioritize wellness and technological innovation. Symbi Homes is well known for their groundbreaking project, Queen of Zero, a net zero Victorian home that showcases cutting-edge sustainability practices. Nicole's passion for reinventing residential construction to benefit both people and the planet has earned her multiple national recognitions, including partnerships with leading media organizations and product manufacturers. So today we'll dive into her journey, the challenges of scaling green building initiatives, and what the future holds for sustainable home development. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction, and glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we can, just starting with kind of a company overview and mission, Symbi Homes focuses on the symbiosis between people and the planet. Can you tell us more about how this mission shapes the way you approach building homes?
Yeah, so at Symbi Homes, we do new homes, net zero new homes, and also deep energy retrofits. So renovations with the goal of building decarbonization as much as possible, right? So reducing energy loads, but also providing renewable energy and also looking at sustainable work processes and materials as well. So we look at both operational and embodied carbon, right? And so, yeah. And does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just checking in on how it is that the way that the mission of Symbi Homes is and shapes the way that you approach building homes. So yeah, both operations and the materials.
Yeah, so we do have a very holistic view of sustainability. And it's basically started back like 15 years ago. I was building a house for my family and I wanted it to be as sustainable, as green as possible, right? Back then we talked about green building. We didn't really use the term sustainability as much, and I was really frustrated for a couple of reasons. One, I couldn't find the expertise in the field to build me a green home. It was really difficult here in Maryland, just outside Washington, D.C. And secondly, the cost to go green was really exorbitantly expensive, like everything from, spray foam insulation to LED lighting, even, we're talking about like $45 per recessed light, and this wasn't that long ago. And so we finished the house. We made it as high performance as we possibly could. It was a beautiful home. But I then and there sort of decided, okay, I want to get into this business because I see a huge need to advance the industry as a whole towards building green homes.
Okay, so taking on from your own personal experiences is where we're developed into. And part of that too, what inspired you to pivot into sustainable residential construction after such a diverse career? It's kind of online with what you were just saying, but any more information to provide to that?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we were working on that initial property, I was finishing my PhD in education. So I was writing my dissertation, getting ready to defend, but I was also picking out fixtures and finishes and helping design this house. And I just fell in love with the process of building. Like, it was just so fascinating to me. But luckily, I finished my PhD, I defended, and I still use those skills, though, that I learned in grad school. I'm all about education. I do a lot of writing for the industry. And I kind of look at the job site from an ethnographic point of view. Like, I'm always studying the relationships of the contractors and the subcontractors and the homeowners and using that information to try to make our business better.
Amazing. Good. That's one of the things that I appreciate too about some of the kinds of people that I'm trying and companies that I'm trying to bring together for this show is that we're not just focused on some of the materials necessarily, even though that's a big important part, making sure we're using eco-friendly, sustainable materials, but the whole gambit, the whole breadth of how are we approaching the relationship dynamics and making sure that things are really working together in good ways, good harmonious ways too amongst people and the projects. So I'm glad to hear that you've got your eye on all of that. I'm curious. So the Queen of Zero, fascinating that your work on projects like that. Could you share more about the goals and innovations behind that project and how it's helping push the boundaries of sustainable home building?
Yeah, the Queen of Zero is such an awesome project. I kind of consider it sort of a once in a lifetime opportunity too, because unfortunately, the original 1901 Queen Anne Victorian on that lot burned down in 2020. They never find the cause of the fire, but it's a similar fate to what a lot of Victorians actually succumb to, unfortunately, because of the all wood construction, lots of flammable materials, and then the balloon framing. It's just one little spark and the whole thing, nothing was salvageable. But the homeowner had decided right after the tragedy was over that he was going to rebuild almost an exact replica, but he wanted to make it high performance. He was very concerned about resiliency, right? Like he didn't want a house that was going to ever burn down again. But he was also thinking about the increasingly strong storms that we're experiencing here on the East Coast, the higher levels of humidity. And, his old house was very drafty, right? That's kind of how Victorians were. They were designed to breathe and not necessarily super comfortable, right? Because of that. And there were lots of toxins in the house as well. So he wanted to really take it to the next level and came to me and said, okay, well, what can we do together? And I said, why don't we approach it from the Zero Energy Ready home program perspective? Let's reach that level of certification in terms of energy efficiency. And we'll also look at Indoor Air Plus to make sure that we tackle all of the issues around good air quality in the home and those sorts of things, make it as comfortable as we possibly can. And then we'll look at Tesla solar shingles, right, to do the renewable energy side of things. Victorian has so many pitches and valleys and dormers that it really just wasn't possible to put traditional panels up there. We wouldn't have gotten very much production at all. So fortunately, he had the budget to do all these wonderful things. And we worked together. We've been working together for, I think, 3 years now. And the homeowner is getting ready to move in, I'm very proud to say, in about a week or two.
Wow. Perfect timing. I love to hear that coming all together. I'll have to maybe try to connect people on the episode to the actual home so that they can go check it out and see it. And two, I want to check. You mentioned that Symbi Homes is involved in demonstration projects with media organizations and project manufacturers. What roles do these partnerships play in advancing your mission?
Yeah, so at Symbi Homes, we do what are sometimes called show homes, sometimes they're called case studies. We partner with, a magazine, and then we create a whole program for manufacturers where they can get involved, they can collaborate with us, they donate products, and in exchange, we create all this content around the product. One of the things that's really tough in our industry, I think, is that it's really hard to push innovation for home builders. I'm completely sympathetic about this, though. I'm not one of those people to say, home builders are laggards and they don't want to change. And it's not, I don't really think it's about that. I think everybody's interested in improving. But the problem is that when we try things, if it doesn't go well, then we're always on the hook. The builder's always on the hook, right? And it can cost tens of thousands of dollars to fix a mistake. I mean, it can put somebody out of business, right? So there is a risk-averse strategy that a lot of builders employ, which is actually a very smart business strategy, right? So my mission has been about is trying to identify those really key aspects of innovation that are very effective and then helping normalize them so that other builders will be, less averse. I was going to say afraid, but that's not quite the word. Just less averse to trying some new things, right?
Yeah. Well, I've come across a number of situations where builders are trying to get the project done. And sometimes the kind of compounding effect is the supply chain doesn't get built up. So subcontractors aren't able to get those eco-friendly resources because it hasn't been used. The suppliers don't even have them in access because so many builders are kind of risk averse managing that. So they choose that safer, more in stock option, quicker, easier. It is hopefully a challenge that will not be too drawn out in the overcoming. Get that happening more and more, and hopefully a snowball effect can take place where it becomes a cheaper, more easy to access option over time, those more innovative materials and processes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's definitely a supply issue, and then it's also a skill issue too, right? I'm sure you hear this a lot, but the subcontractors, a lot of times they they don't have experience in things like high performance heat pumps even, So there's this huge learning curve. And yeah, all of that takes a lot of time, and time is money, like you said.
All right. Well, to check into some challenges that you might have come across here, you've highlighted access to capital as a major challenge. I've seen that a lot too. Curious, how are you navigating these barriers, and what types of investors or partners are you looking to help you scale?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. One of our problems is that we do a lot of one-offs, and we haven't been very super successful at scaling some even really successful models that we've built. And part of the problem is that when we build in a neighborhood, we sell for a premium because we have all these great sustainability features built into the homes. And so then by selling at a premium, we raise the property values of all the adjacent properties. So then it's like we sort of get cost out of the neighborhood, and then we kind of have to move on, to the next one. So it's a lot of it is around just like a huge timing issue, right? Around capital. But I actually went and pitched to maybe a dozen traditional real estate investors a few years ago. This was pre-pandemic, trying to get something off the ground that I thought could really scale. And their response was all like, well, you go ahead. And it was very interesting because number one, they were very skeptical that the buyer was there for my product, which I've proven now is totally true. And then the other thing is, oh, well, you haven't built one yet, so you need to go and build one and sort of like, do that proof of concept, right? And then come back to me, basically. But what was interesting about that particular project, it was a duplex I was building here in Prince George's County, Maryland. And once we were finished, the zoning changed. I took a single family lot and turned it into a side-by-side duplex, net zero ready home, gorgeous property, fit in really well with the neighborhood. But then they changed the zoning, so we couldn't do that anymore, so that was a big scaling problem for us. But yeah, so typically traditional real estate investors, they just want to do what's tried and true. They don't like taking risks. They see me as a risk. But now, most recently, for example, we're doing like sort of a friends and family raise. So we have some families members who are we're coming together, pulling the money together for our most recent project here in Kensington, Maryland.
Either link you to after. I don't know if you've come across some of the, and hopefully more and more come online, but the financial incentives like the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac lower tax incentive for green. I think it's the Green Globe certified homes they offer, or it's a lower interest rates that they offer for their loans when the home has been Green Globe certified.
But that's not a commercial loan, right? That's a residential. So that would be for the buyer, the person who buys one of my properties. Is that right?
No, I actually believe it's for the construction. Don't quote me on it. I'm trying to remember. I had a conversation with the fellow Eric Truelove at Green Building Resources. So I can pull back information for that and give you the exact specifics of it. But he had a lot of success. I think over 200 different firms and projects that he had helped get the certification and then get that lower interest rate, so that way they could move forward with their projects.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'd love to hear more about it for sure.
Yeah. It's, that's the financing just comes up over and over again. I actually want to do more specific building out of resources and people who can help with that kind of green financing, because it just comes up so often when with all these great things that we can do with green building, but money and the costs and the making it happen. So, and the payback period on like solar panels, for example. And it's when people can get that more immediate incentive, like the lower interest rates on their home loans. So, yeah, those are just things that I've come across as being important to help move these kinds of projects forward. Curious, next question: what has been the reception from homeowners and developers towards energy efficient homes and retrofits, and how do you address any kind of skepticism or lack of awareness?
Well, over the years, I've definitely seen the attitudes start to change, right? So it went from highly, highly skeptical. It was very hard for us, like on our custom builds, to convince people to do like, low flow toilets or something like that. They would look at you like literally like you're trying to sell them snake oil, or they'd be worried about the cost. They want to spend their money in, fancy countertops. They don't necessarily want to spend money on upgrading their insulation package, right? So that's one of the reasons why we turned to, doing less custom work and more, speculative work, because, the buyers were just not interested, right? The homeowners were not interested. But I'm starting to see it change, right? And I do see that, like, when we put a house on the market, we a lot of times we'll get like, multiple offers, or, we'll get offers in a very short period of time. So there is a buyer out there, and they do say that the sustainability aspects of the home is one of the reasons why they're purchasing, right? So we're starting to see that shift, but it's kind of slow going. And a lot of the production builders will say, well, people aren't asking for it, so we're not going to put these upgrades in because they're not asking for it. And I always respond like, do you think they're going to walk in your home, see that there's no solar panels, that there's no high performance heat pumps, and then tell you, I'm just going to go buy that other green efficient home down the road? They can't say that because there's no inventory, right? So people don't have choices, and they don't have the education to kind of demand this stuff, And I think that's kind of where we're at. I think a lot of people, if you ask them, heck yeah, they want the upgrades, but is the product out there? Like, definitely not.
Right. Yeah, that whole the curve for the educating, getting enough awareness around to say like, oh yeah, people can make informed choices. Before I got into the green building space, like heat pumps wasn't even on my radar, like high performance heat pumps and the amazing efficiency that they have. And so yeah, hopefully more and more traction gets built. There's a woman too, I think she's actually she's in New York. But I might have to connect you to her. Mag, I don't remember her last name, but I've had a conversation with her, and does great work. She's a realtor and helps educate people and does different trainings to help just kind of bring awareness to like the benefits of having a heat pump, and Pearl certification too for homes. So that way there's kind of more of like a standardization when folks are checking homes and saying like, oh, hey, wait, this one's actually, not only got some of the improvements, the sustainability improvements, but they've gone as far as to, there's other LEED certifications and but the Pearl is one, especially in the real estate, like for realtors to be able to kind of showcase like, here's some of the things we've done with the solar or the insulation, and has been, it seems like it's a good kind of up and coming stamp of approval to say that this home has met certain requirements.
Yeah, no, I do. I am familiar with the Pearl program, and I think we do need more sort of like standardization like that, so that you can actually put it in your listing when you're listing a house, something that's going to tag it. Like, I always say it's kind of funny how, you look at a listing for a home and it's all about like, the island in the kitchen and the fancy countertops and the stainless steel appliances, but they don't mention anything about the indoor air quality. It's just like, I think indoor air quality is really, really important, so I think that part of, like you said, the education, that piece like really needs to change. And yeah, there are programs like Pearl now where you can actually put that in the listing, and then people can kind of Google it and know that there's something behind that, which is really important. But it's interesting because I do say all the time, and I'm pretty sure my data are correct, that the standard that we build to, less than 1% of homes built in the US each year achieve that standard, net zero ready or whatever, indoor air plus, whatever, less than 1%. So it's still just a teeny tiny niche of the universe of home building.
Yeah, well, hopefully more and more that becomes the standard that's needed. Looking forward, you're focused on scaling deep energy retrofits, particularly for mid-century tract homes. Can you explain why this market is key for you and what the next steps are in achieving this vision?
Yeah, so if you think about it, like those post-war, like little ranches or ramblers or little capes, right? There's literally like, even just in my neighborhood, there's like thousands of them, right? They're built like in the 50s, and they were not built to a very high standard of energy efficiency. They were built very quick. The house I'm in right now was built out of 2x3 exterior panels. So they were doing this because it's interesting, is I actually am a strong supporter of like structurally insulated panels, like panel construction. They build them in a factory offsite and then they ship them flat, and you create a really airtight, really energy efficient home that way. These, though, in the 50s, they were experimenting with this really tiny panel. And so, a lot of these homes are made from this. And what happens in my area is that if somebody wants to improve these homes, they just tear them down. They just tear them down, and they they start over, but it's getting so expensive to do that. And also I feel like it's a lot of waste too. Like there are materials here that are worth salvaging. The foundations, a lot of times, were done pretty well back in the day, and they can last another 100 years. So we're trying to, right now, we're working on a model that will enhance and build, extend a bit this tiny little rambler house, and we want to do it so that we create this model where other people can replicate it. So you don't have to tear it down. You can retrofit the existing building, like we're doing exterior insulation on the existing building, and then build a super high performance addition. They'll give you the extra space that you need in these homes. Also, we're very into like biophilism. Are you familiar with biophilism? Yeah. So connecting the home to nature. And these little houses had these little tiny windows. I mean, I think it was a time period when people were not wanting to connect to nature. It was actually like more civilized to be indoors, right? So I think, yeah. So trying to like change the window sizes, open up the views of the yard, all of that is very important to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. And maybe even the difference, they might have spent more time working out on the farm and actually being like outside a lot. So maybe inside was more of their enclosure. Well, that's wonderful. I can kind of almost imagine that blend from the old style home to the new style development and having that kind of combination. To check too, this might be part of it, but looking ahead, do you see Symbi Homes evolving in any particular way in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think definitely working on replication of the retrofit model. Like that's very, very important to us. So finding ways to very, very easily, quickly, efficiently decarbonize these mid-century homes. And then also we actually do a lot of education and help for other builders as well. And so we're rolling out right now this pre-drywall energy audit process. We think that it's very important for builders when they're doing a new home or an extensive remodel that they do a blower door test before the drywall goes on the house. So, because then you can find holes so much easier, right? You can find the flaws in the envelope. So we're pushing, and we've been talking to a lot of builders and trying to get the information out there that we will come and do a blower door test. We'll do a duct test before the drywall goes up. And then if there are any problems, you can correct them right then and there.
Nice. Hearing that, I think too, that's something that's come up in conversation, like having the envelope properly sealed and just making sure that those kinds of inefficiencies are addressed before doing something like solar panels. Because if you can address what the overall energy consumption of the home is before trying to just outsource the energy production, you could cut how much panels you need. You could just have better air quality or numbers of different benefits that come along with it. Glad to hear you're addressing that.
Yeah, comfort is a big one, right? When you have a leaky house, it's much harder to get a consistent temperature, across the board. So, and then there's issues with moisture too when you have a leaky house. Yeah, addressing all of those different issues and doing it while the house is under construction, when you can see inside the walls, it just makes so much sense, right?
Yeah, definitely. Not having to do a tear down walls or try to get into the insulation. For going forward too, in terms of scaling and growth, are there specific areas where you feel more strategic support or partnerships could help accelerate your goals?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty much, I have a couple partners that I work with, but I operate very much like a solo entrepreneur. So I wear so many different hats from, I do all of the marketing stuff, I do all of the contract writing, I do all of the accounting, I'm just like all the stuff. Yeah, I mean, any of those places where you can bring in professionals to help you and support you would be absolutely brilliant, basically. Something as simple as like right now, I want to send targeted marketing to all the homeowners in the DC metro area who are going through the permit process for a new home or a significant remodel. I want to reach out to them directly. And I just don't have the expertise, to understand like how do you get, I'm sure there's a way to like get those addresses. It's public information if you apply for a permit, but I just don't have the expertise to know how to do that.
All right, and actually find the people who need your services and can directly compete with them.
Yeah, I've never, I've had the pleasure of never having to do much in terms of advertising, I mean, I have my social media, but that's more about telling stories. So people usually just find me somehow. And now I want to go out and find them. So it's the first time I'm doing that. So I'm like, okay, well, I need advertising 101.
Well, yeah, that's a conversation we could have too another time. Happy to discuss those kinds of things, just because that's what I'm involved in and interested in helping green builders, especially with.
Yeah, for sure. No, I would love to.
Also curious with potential clients, how it is you're approaching educating the long-term benefits of high performance, sustainable homes, and do you see this as a bottleneck in expanding your market reach?
Yeah, no, I think it's come up a few times, but I totally, I mean, education is absolutely key, and I think around here, especially like in the DC area, we have a very old housing stock. I think it's something like 70% of homes are like 100 years old or something crazy like that. I mean, just very, very old housing stock. So people have gotten very accustomed to living in spaces that are just not ideal when it comes to comfort and efficiency and indoor air quality. It's just what they're used to. It's just that's normal for them, So to say to them, well, this could be different and it could be so much better. And, here's how we do it. It's still, for most homeowners, it's still so confusing to try to figure out, like, especially with the IRA rebates, they want to, they're interested in those tax credits. They know that there's a rebate program coming. They want to access those resources, but they don't know where to begin. And they get so much different information from different contractors. They get really confused.
Yeah, the education piece does seem like a central pillar to be addressing. And a final question, curious, what excites you most about the future of Symbi Homes and the sustainable construction industry?
I mean, I think what excites me is that our kind, right? The sustainable builders and the building science people and architects who are interested in this and the engineers who are interested in this, we are starting to come together now more than ever. And I think we are sort of organizing ourselves in a way that we will become a force to be reckoned with. The policymakers too really want this, right? Like DC government has a huge goal around decarbonization. Montgomery County, Maryland, same thing, So they need to find solutions as well. And to know that we are kind of all engaging in this dialogue, it makes me very hopeful that there's going to be clear policies supporting this and standard operating procedures, to move forward because our community is working together.
I love that. Definitely. That's where I feel like I'm trying to focus my efforts to, is bringing kind of the clusters of the builders, the resource suppliers, finding out how it is that we can really start partnering together, so that way these initiatives and the policymakers can really coalesce and say, like, yeah, these are the important things that need to happen, the decarbonization, net zero building, and then actually making it happen, make it reality, allow people more easier access, more financially viable options to start making these things happen. But thank you so much for everything that you're doing to be a part of that. And also thank you again for being here on today's episode, New Earth Entrepreneurs. It's been a pleasure learning about your journey and the incredible work with Symbi Homes, and I definitely look forward to seeing how you continue to grow.
Yeah, well, thank you, Timothy. Thanks for connecting. I really appreciate it, and let's keep in touch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.